Today, let's delve into the profound necessity of immutable laws. In a world defined by constant flux, why uphold certain laws without alteration? Indeed, change is the one undeniable certainty in our existence. It permeates the very fabric of creation, an inherent quality that shapes our reality. The most predictable reality on earth is change. If there's one thing you can predict, it's change. Change is inherent in creation. God created everything to experience change. Mankind is the only creature in creation who has the power to determine the change. They can design what kind of change they want. Humans have the power to decide what to change. Therefore, the human has what we call the power of will. Will. It is the essence of our ability to decide, to shape our destinies with intentionality. Unlike animals guided solely by instinct, we possess the power to influence the course of history through our will. For the future of our world rests squarely in our hands. We hold the authority to sculpt the very fabric of society, determining the landscapes of nations, communities, and cultures. The weight of this responsibility cannot be overstated, as our decisions dictate what is deemed normal or aberrant, righteous or immoral. This creates some very serious issues. We can decide what nations will look like, what communities will look like, what culture will look like. We can decide what is normal and what is not normal. We can determine what is right and what is wrong, what is good and what is bad. All that power is in your hand. We can decide to love God or curse God. We can decide to abandon truth or create our own. This is a powerful power called the will that God gave us. And because of that, change is in our hands. Let me quickly outline what I refer to as human-induced change. We find ourselves in a time where our collective will is driving significant shifts across the globe. Firstly, there's a notable political disarray, accompanied by societal transformations and shifts in ideologies, leading to philosophical uncertainties. Moreover, we're witnessing a moral flux, where the values of nations are being manipulated, leaving us in a state of vacillation regarding our core beliefs. Additionally, religious conflicts persist, and scientific advancements bring about new ethical dilemmas as we grapple with their implications. The rapid pace of technological progress and the interconnectedness of economies contribute to what we term globalization, fundamentally altering our world. Furthermore, the redefinition of fundamental concepts, such as marriage, underscores the depth of change permeating our society. Now, let's delve into what I describe as the age of experimentation. We find ourselves in an era where we're exploring various avenues, be it economic models, relationship dynamics, political structures, or educational paradigms. However, amidst this experimentation, we're witnessing the collapse of governments, the emergence of grassroots movements, challenging traditional power structures, and a rise in both domestic and international terrorism. Economic crises loom large, exacerbating widespread unemployment and eroding trust in leadership across all sectors. Moreover, there's a noticeable shift in our moral compass, with behaviors once deemed taboo becoming increasingly acceptable. In essence, we're navigating through a period of unprecedented change where uncertainty prevails and the very fabric of society is being redefined before our eyes. Now, let's delve into the ramifications of these changes we're witnessing. Firstly, there's a pervasive sense of distrust towards authority figures. People have lost faith in their leaders, leading to a growing skepticism and cynicism Moreover, we're seeing the gradual encroachment of liberalism, accompanied by a rise in lawlessness, permissiveness, and compromise. This erosion of moral standards has paved the way for immorality to flourish, as we witness a re-engineering of societal morals and values. Then we have liberalism creeping in, lawlessness, permissiveness, compromise, immorality, re-engineering of morals, culture of death taking over the country's culture of violence, devaluation of human life, generational disillusionment, and sexual and social confusion. It's imperative that we approach these challenges with intelligence and discernment. As the Apostle Paul admonished, we must not be ignorant of the strategies of our adversaries. We need to understand the tactics being employed against us to effectively combat them. In other words, study your enemy before you attack. Understand what the enemy's equipment is, what his weapons are, and how he fights. We have to understand what's happening in order for us to know what to do. Number two, doing nothing is not an option. As Albert Einstein famously stated, you cannot solve a problem at the same level it was created. Similarly, Jesus metaphorically illustrated that a bitter tree cannot yield sweet fruit. This implies that expecting righteousness from an unrighteous individual is futile. In essence, if humanity is responsible for creating the problems we face, it follows that we cannot rely solely on human efforts to resolve them. We must seek solutions beyond the confines of the mindset that led to their creation in the first place. Number three, whatever you allow, you can never criticize. In other words, whatever you avoid, you can never change. And whatever you complain about, you can never criticize. And this is why point number 4 is important. You must become the answer to your own prayer for change in the world. Point number 4 emphasizes the vital importance of taking personal responsibility for effecting change in the world. Gone are the days of passively waiting for someone else to step in and make a difference. Now is the time for action. God is calling upon each of us to be proactive agents of transformation in our communities and societies. You see, whatever you permit, you are responsible for. If we remain silent in the face of laws or actions that contradict our values, we forfeit our right to later criticize them. Therefore, we must not shy away from taking a stand and actively working towards the change we wish to see. It's a heavy burden, but it's also a tremendous opportunity to exercise our God-given influence for the betterment of society. Number 5, you can let things happen or you can make them happen. And that is where we're at in life right now. You either can let things happen and become a victim of them, or you can decide, I am going to make what happens. I'm going to make sure the decisions that are made and the changes we experience have something to do with them. God has set the example by taking proactive steps to initiate change. He declares, I will act, and so must we, my friends. It's our calling to actively engage and ensure that we don't merely let things unfold passively. If we desire something we've never experienced before, we must be willing to step out of our comfort zones and take risks. Staying safe and avoiding criticism won't bring about the transformation we seek. It's those who embrace criticism as a form of encouragement who truly make a difference. Fearlessness in the face of opposition and criticism is what distinguishes impactful individuals. So let's seize the opportunity and take that leap of faith. Hence the error we find ourselves in can aptly be labeled the age of experimentation. It signifies a time when changes are being made without due consideration of their consequences or alignment with fundamental truths. We are essentially conducting experiments without fully understanding the potential outcomes. A poignant example of this occurred recently in America during a Supreme Court deliberation on same-sex marriage. During the proceedings, one justice made a thought-provoking remark. He cautioned against delving into matters that are not fully comprehended, citing the uncertainty surrounding the psychological impact on children raised in households with same-sex parents. This underscores the gravity of our societal experiments, especially when they involve the lives of children. It is indeed troubling to enact laws without fully grasping their ramification. Consequently, it is unjust for individuals to demand legalization of initiatives that lack thorough study, expecting society to function as a laboratory for their experiments. Our predicament can be traced back to the wisdom found in Deuteronomy 28. In essence, it's a stark warning against the folly of the laws we attempt to enact. If we scrutinize the laws being proposed, it becomes evident that we are heading down a path of madness. So the next time someone advocates for changes that are detrimental to society, it's perfectly justified to label them as mad. God's message is crystal clear. Any proposal or reform that contradicts his laws is a clear indication of a society spiraling into madness. Furthermore, God speaks of blindness, a state where individuals, despite seeing the truth, are incapable of acknowledging it due to their entrenched desires. It's akin to knowingly indulging in harmful habits simply because they provide temporary pleasure. This blindness or madness leads to confusion, a state of disarray and bewilderment. God warns that straying from his laws will inevitably lead to this state of confusion. So let us reflect on moments of confusion we've experienced and recognize the perils of deviating from divine guidance. Okay? I want you to go back and think for a minute how you felt when you were confused. Confusion means you're still busy, but not effective. Confusion means you are spending money, you are using time, and wasting all of it. A confused person is a dangerous person. Yeah, God will make you confused. This is in the Bible. It says, you walk away from my fundamental foundational laws. I predict your future. You are smarter than God. Your PhD means nothing to God's laws. You can't outgrow God's laws. You can't out-educate God's laws. No matter what you try, you will be unsuccessful. Some, you'll never see any scriptures they cause. Look, if you start tampering with laws that are permanent, you're predicting your own failure. Number 6, to advance, progress, and develop, change is necessary. Yes, change is essential for advancement, progress, and growth. However, it's crucial to recognize that not all change is synonymous with improvement. Not every alteration signifies progress or a step forward. Consider those individuals whom you once knew as upright and strong, only to witness them deteriorate over time. Their change wasn't for the better. You take, for instance, your sister, who was never an alcoholic 5 years ago. True change must align with the boundaries set by natural and spiritual laws. It cannot disregard the principles established by God and the inherent laws of nature. Nature, in its impartiality, pays no heed to human preferences or votes. This underscores a vital point. Genuine change operates within these boundaries, within the framework of pre-established laws and principles. In essence, change can either nurture growth or bring about destruction. Some of the entrepreneurs among us may have experienced launching their businesses with great enthusiasm, only to find themselves in over their heads. They expanded rapidly, moved into spaces they couldn't afford, and hired more staff than they could sustainably pay. But eventually the weight of these decisions became overwhelming, leading to what they termed as resizing or downsizing, essentially taking steps backward. Why? Because they failed to manage the growth, to control the changes unfolding around them. What was meant to be a blessing, their company, turned into a burden. But are we wiser than God? Consider His guidance. Don't start a family until you're ready to commit in marriage. God understands the potential repercussions, the risk of unguided youth falling into crime and delinquency. Therefore, His instruction is clear. Establish a stable foundation through marriage before bringing children into the world. Number 7, don't just change for the sake of change. It seems like everywhere you turn, someone is advocating for change. They want to update, revise, or renew everything from constitutions to personal habits. Now, don't get me wrong, there are areas in life where a little tweaking can be beneficial. But there are foundational aspects that should remain untouched. Imagine deciding to tweak the foundation of your house. It's a recipe for disaster. Sure, you can change the windows, doors, or even the roof. But tampering with the foundation, that's a risk you shouldn't take. You say, some things serve as the underpinnings, the very foundation of our lives. Trying to improve upon them is like trying to buy a fancy chandelier while neglecting the foundation of the house. It's a flawed approach, yet one we often adopt. We think we can indulge in superficial changes while neglecting the core principles that uphold our existence. Here's the truth. You must be intentional about the changes you desire. Silence in the face of folly only allows it to thrive. Evil gains ground when good people do nothing. Darkness prevails when light remains absent. Problems persist when solutions are disregarded. So when it comes to change, you have a choice. You can either passively accept it and become a victim, or you can take charge and become an agent of change. I've made my decision. I refuse to be a passive observer in this era of change. I choose to be an agent of change, to initiate the transformations I want to see, and I challenge you to do the same. It's time to decide which role you want to play in shaping the future. As a victim or as an agent of change. Number 8, the only way for us to regulate and control the changes we want is we have to have kind of a plan. Planning is the key. And the ability to plan is God's gift to man to control the future. We can design and desire what kind of future we want. Planning is man's proactive response to inevitable change. We must not just sit back and let people plan our lives. In other words, God has given us a responsibility to bring change in the world. No change is more dangerous than uncontrolled change, unregulated change, unwise change. And this is why we must make sure that change is controlled. My friends, the most uncontrollable power on earth is change. I want to give you something brand new. What is change? A change, simply put, is deviation from a set reference. It's when we move away from what we've known as the norm, transition from a familiar state, or even violate established rules. Whenever the topic of change arises, it inherently involves deviating, transitioning, or violating something we once held as a reference point. So let's move away from some things that we considered a reference, a norm, a set state, and rules to be abided by. You can only deviate from something that's original. So when a person is away from the original, they are called a deviant. You deviated from the original norm. That's all. And be honest and say that. Don't try to get me to bless it. Number 9, we cannot change without admitting that there must be an original reference. Therefore, the question arises, what constitutes an original reference? And where do we find it? Simplifying it, in terms of God, the original source is deemed the original reference. To illustrate, imagine you draw water from a well using a bucket. What serves as the source of the water in the bucket? The well. Thus, the well becomes the reference point. If someone inquires about the water's origin, you point back to the well. Now, here's the key. The bucket can never be the well. It can never surpass the well. It must consistently refer back to the well. In essence, the bucket can never outgrow, overshadow, or outwit the well. Moving on to point number 2. What constitutes the original reference? It's the initial state of something, the foundational design, if you will. The first reference is what's established from the original blueprint. As a surveyor, your primary focus isn't on fulfilling people's desires. Rather, it's on identifying the original design and reference established at that time. You delve into the original blueprint and seek out the original reference points. What exactly constitutes these reference points? Well, harking back to the Old Testament, one of the earliest laws bestowed upon Moses by God was, do not move the ancient boundaries. The original reference maintains order. That means when you move the original reference, there's social disorder. Let us remember that the power of change is not always synonymous with progress. We must heed the wisdom that all true transformation must occur within the bounds of natural and spiritual laws. Only then can we ensure that change not only brings advancement, but also fosters stability and sustainable growth for society. Thank you for listening to this message, as we hope that it has been a blessing to you. Our goal is to show you new paths and opportunities so that you can discover your purpose. Please visit our channel for more videos.